Hi everyone, and welcome to Movie Fight Club, where each week we fight it out over whether The Interview with the Vampire, the Vampire Chronicles, is good or not. I'm Matthew, and I don't really like The Interview with the Vampire Chronicles.
Wow, are you going to say it that way every time?
No! I need to completely redo that, because it makes it sound like every week we fight about whether The Interview with the Vampire is good or not. And
well, I mean, that's how we've done it every other time. And last week I was like, that's kind of weird, but I didn't change it.
So I might need to rewrite that one. Who are you?
Oh, you're going to leave all of that in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I am Mandi, and I think Interview with the Vampire Chronicles, is an exceptionally good movie.
It always takes me by surprise when I see that subtitle. Because
I forgot it was a thing till I Googled it and saw it.
Right? And that's the official name of it. I don't think I've ever seen it written with that as a poster, DVD, anything to do with the movie. Queen of the Damned is not called Queen of the Damned, the Vampire Chronicles Continued. It's just...
Right.
Yeah. Who knows why that's...
I also always mix up whether or not it's Interview with a Vampire or Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah, poor title, frankly, because everyone auto-defaults to Interview with a Vampire.
Right, and that's incorrect. Very similar to Sex and the City or Sex in the City.
Okay.
Another title with a word that nobody knows which one it is.
This is the one that I think everyone, like I say, defaults to the wrong word. Not even like it's mixed up. It's just Interview with a Vampire. It rolls off the tongue so much better. So, point one. This film is badly titled. And it's the that is the bad bit of the title.
But it's... All right. Before we do that, let me tell you about the movie. Interview with the Vampire is the 1994 film adaptation of Anne Rice's novel of the same name. Anne Rice also wrote the screenplay. Directed by Neil Jordan, it stars Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, and Kirsten Dunst. It received 2 Oscar nominations for Best Art Direction and Best Original Score. It opened against The Santa Claus in November of 1994. Did you know that?
No.
It beat The Santa Claus opening weekend.
Really? Beat out the Santa Claus. It did not beat it
after that.
Nice.
It did not beat it anymore after that, but it did opening weekend. So, I mean, it's called Interview with the Vampire because that's what the book is called.
Okay. No, the Interview with a Vampire is a pretty good title. Interview with the Vampire. It's oddly specific.
It does make it sound like there's only one vampire in the world.
The Vampire Chronicles. As though this is... I get that it's book X of Y.
Yeah, I think there were like 4 books or something.
But it doesn't work here. Anyway, I haven't read the books.
I have not either.
Oh, okay. I thought you might have done. This is much more in your milieu.
It is, but I was 12 in 1994.
Yeah, but the book has existed since then, Mandi.
I know. I mean, and the book came out in 1976. So, like, this was very adult vampire. This would be like high school me reading Anita Blake, which I don't read Anita Blake now.
Who's Anita Blake?
Anita Blake is a vampire hunter. It's a book series by Laurel K. Hamilton. And this book series has been going on for years. There's like 40 books out or something. But it's basically a method to get erotica into the hands of all of the women in the United States. Yeah. And Anne Rice is kind of a precursor to that, just a little bit.
Yes, she is. Yes,
which is why I didn't read it back when I would have seen this movie and when I started becoming very interested in vampires. And then by the time I was interested, it's that same old, tale as old as time. By the time I was interested, it was old.
Okay.
We've been down this road many times.
We have. Okay, so I didn't realize the books were as old as that, to be honest with you. I would have said 80s.
Yeah, no, it took her 20 years to get the movie written. Even though the rights were sold, the movie rights were sold very quickly. It took 20 years for the movie to come. But they still let her write the screenplay, which is great.
Yeah, which is really good. Yeah, I always appreciate that because I think the author is generally the person who knows it best. When they're a competent author, there are times when, retranslating a story works well.
And when it doesn't, Ernest Cline, Ready Player One. Sorry. I have thoughts about that one.
Yeah, your mileage may vary on the quality of the book and the movie, so... Moving swiftly on. This is another book movie adaptation. Is it just that all the good movies are based off books? And those
so you're acknowledging it's a good movie. You guys heard it. He just said the good movies are based off books.
This was a recommendation, so this is not off the classics list.
But I was surprised. I had not seen this movie since high school.
Okay.
And I was pleasantly surprised by how well it holds up, but also how it birthed like an entire genre.
I mean, Joss Whedon knows Anne Rice a lot.
Yes.
I mean, he owes horror and a lot of things a lot, to be fair. And, everyone does crib off each other. Mm-hmm. But the entire Angela Spike...
Absolutely.
Personalities, stories, all of it is
Absolutely. I mean, Interview with the Vampire, if for no other reason, I love it because it is directly responsible for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel the show, Twilight. 100%. Like, all of these things that I really love and enjoy would not have come to existence and been as popular as they were if movies like Interview with the Vampire hadn't come first.
I would argue the books are the responsible thing. Because I think there are... and we did a whole thing on vampires a couple of years ago. We should probably link to it in the show notes. We did lots of vampire films and discussions of the evolution of the vampire film.
We did.
And there was this sort of a turn into going from being a horror character into a very sort of grungy thing in the 80s, but then back into romantic through the Anne Rice stuff and various other things that were going on. I'm going to skip halfway through my notes because I think it leads to some of the other conversations. Antonio Banderas.
Okay.
What do we think of Antonio Banderas as Armand?
As an actor or just like the character in general?
All of it. Character, performance.
I mean, I think he played the character very well because Armand, the character of Armand is supposed to be mysterious and sultry and like the head of the vampire cabal, right? And he has that air around him. Now, his Santiago, was that his little right-hand man? His
Stephen
weird
Wright?
mime?
Yeah.
His weird mime vampire was weird, but I thought Antonio Banderas pulled his role off. Honestly, I think all of the casting in this movie was pretty top-notch.
We're talking Antonio Banderas, is what I wanted to ask.
Okay.
I would agree. Antonio Banderas is sensational. Armand just has so much gravity and quality to him. When he turns up, that first shot of him stood there with the cane, it's a bit like the first time you start seeing Jason Isaacs as Malfoy. It is striking and grand, and you're like, this is a character of significance. And it takes 75 minutes to introduce him. The best thing in this film, and it takes most of the film to get to him. We finally get a decent vampire with everything that all the vampires are supposed to have. And it takes us so long. And I was watching it, and it's only been a few years since I watched it, going, when is Antonio Banderas rocking up? This film needs more Antonio Banderas because he's the best thing about it.
Oh, gosh. I don't think he's the best thing about it at all.
It's so frustrating because when he's on screen, when he's doing his thing, it's wonderful. It's really good. Because you're right, it's got the whole secret cabal, elite race that we've seen done in many, many different things. And Neil Jordan did a film following this up, well, many, many years later, called Byzantium, which does some of the same stuff, but it's a lowly, I think she might even be a prostitute turned into a vampire who ends up bringing down the secret cabal of vampires. To spoil some of Byzantium, but really well done. Gemma Arterton, very well worth watching. It's a thing that's always done this stuff, and it's very it's interesting. We like it. He's great. He's so good. And it just was frustrating me throughout. Like, when is he going to get here? When is the plot going to start? When we start getting this secret cabal of vampires.
Oh, no. The plot starts right from the get-go, man.
I mean, it doesn't really have a plot.
It absolutely has a plot.
Why I'm segueing into plot discussions, because... And it's fine. I think it's fine. Being the Vampire Chronicles, it's just telling the story of a vampire over many years. That's okay. But I don't think I could say it has a plot, a story, several acts, learning a lesson over the course of a thing. It's just telling the long life of, Louis.
I love Louis. I love Louis. Obviously this is Louis' story. Mm-hmm. This is a story...
He is the titular vampire. The interview with the vampire.
He is, absolutely. I think... I love him, and it's not just because he's Brad Pitt. Because frankly, if you were going to love something just because he's Brad Pitt, then it would be a movie that Brad Pitt looked better in.
Okay. Okay.
Because this is not like super attractive Brad Pitt in this. This is pale, veiny Brad Pitt. Mm-hmm. But he took the character of Louis and did something with it that he is the tortured soul that Angel wishes he was.
That is possibly fair. Possibly fair.
Like... He's tortured and he doesn't want to kill, and he values humanity. He still has a passion for life, but he doesn't allow that to stop him from living.
Fair, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I certainly appreciate that about him. I like the nuance that in this world there is the possibility that a vampire can choose to value life, human life. Mm-hmm. Which in 1994 is not a story that was being told yet.
No. Not in this mainstream way, I think.
Right.
Mm. I think the issue I have with it, I think the reason why, I'm not the first person to level that this is a morose film. That he is fairly whiny. The film itself calls him whiny and talks about how you have to listen to this for years. And it does feel like years at times. I think part of the thing is there's no period of enjoyment. He becomes a vampire and feasts on people and has the pleasures of the flesh sequence that turns into, but all this death was weighing on me and turned me into this thing. It's just instantly, the very first time he's a vampire, it's just, oh no, I don't want to kill. Oh no, I can't. Oh no, it's terrible. And you want some of that, show us the joy of being a vampire, for want of a better word. There's a reason vampire stories are so successful and vampires are considered the creature of the night thing. Because it's supposed to be fun and sexy and relishing in the pleasures when you don't have to age and so on.
But that's why we have Lestat.
Yeah, and I can only think of two moments in the film, and one of them only came to me because I was looking up a GIF earlier, and one of the GIFs appeared, where he traps the woman in the coffin, and then the bit at the end in the car. There's only a couple of moments where it even looks like he's enjoying it. For the most part, it feels like he's just arguing with Louis and saying we should be enjoying this and relishing and blah, blah, blah. And otherwise, he's just killing, not enjoying the killing, not taking the, pleasures of it. The stuff that we saw with Angel and Darla. And the, long nights with their victims and so on. Speaking euphemistically.
Right.
I just don't think we ever get to see it, and it's a real shame because you sort of want that, and then go, and now we'll start discussing the terrors of it and what it means for someone so long lived to have that weighing on their conscience.
I think we do get some of that. You know, you mentioned the woman in the coffin. Like, that was a very sensual moment, because that's the one where he bit her breast and she didn't realize it until she looked down and saw all the blood, right? And then eventually he puts her in the coffin. So obviously that one he enjoyed very much. The first woman that I remember was when he and Louis were at the tavern and she was between them, next to the tree, and that's when Louis stopped and said he didn't want to kill her and Lestat had already killed her. That seemed very much like he enjoyed that woman. I feel like every time we saw him bite a woman, it felt very much like sexual pleasure for him.
Which, you know, that is the thing with vampires again.
Sure.
Yeah.
And maybe we just didn't see it that often because we were in Louis' point of view. And Louis' point of view was, I don't want to kill, and everything that Lestat does is disgusting me. But I felt like there was a good balance between the two while I was watching it. You know, I mean, obviously we're going to disagree. Yeah. That's the whole point of this show here. But I mean, I thought that it was a really good balance, and that's part of why I enjoyed the movie so much. Because it wasn't just constant, I'm going to put this woman in my thrall and have my way with her and then kill her. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it, because it's so much in Brad Pitt's point of view, that's what sort of took dominance for me. And you're watching and just going, just start enjoying it and then get depressed about it. But it just never seems to quite live up to. And, you know, you go to the theatre and you see them all relishing it, enjoying it. And even then, we're watching him be disgusted and sad about it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, come on. Just somewhere, get some enjoyment from
this. He did seem to enjoy life in Paris, well, in Europe, before he met Armand. When it was just him and Claudia enjoying the high life and doing the dances and all of that.
Yeah, but that's just some dude travelling around Europe. That's not Interview with the Vampire.
That's true.
You mentioned, is it Claudia?
Claudia.
Kirsten Dunst. So that's my big thing against this film. It's got Kirsten Dunst in it. That's a problem.
I'm sorry,
frankly.
what?
I do not.
You don't like Kirsten Dunst?
Not at all.
Oh my gosh.
She's awful. She's really good in Bring It On.
How have we been talking about movies for almost 5 years and I don't know this about you?
Because there are no Kirsten Dunst films worth watching, frankly.
Oh my gosh. She is utterly delightful and brilliant in this movie.
She is not. Do you remember Dracula and Keanu Reeves? Stilted reading of those lines. He was given a script and had to stick to it.
You're not comparing her to that.
Yeah, there are absolutely times. The accent's better, but she's obviously not having to do the accent in the same way. But it just feels like she's reading a script. There are times that she's quoting bits of Shakespeare. And it has that vibe of, and this is perhaps why Keanu Reeves comes to mind. We've not watched Much Ado About Nothing, but Keanu is a little bit like that in Much Ado About Nothing. It's that, I am doing a production. Sweet Prince, may flights of angels take you to your rest. Yes.
No, not at all. I forgot that she was only 12 by the end of the movie. Or by the time she died.
No.
Like, she embodied an old soul in this movie. She absolutely did. Like, to begin with, especially whenever you've got the scene where he's explaining to her why she's never going to grow up. Like, that's a brilliant, moving scene.
She had moments. The bit where she's leaning on Lestat, and he says something about, "Oh, bring me a woman with endowments such as you will never grow into." And she does look sad. But I feel like they're moments she's coached into. I feel like they were like, okay, he's going to say this to you, and you're going to look really sad, and you're going to say something, but then you're going to move on from it because of what's happening in the scene. And
oh no, I 100% disagree. Like, I mean, she was nominated for a Golden Globe for this.
Well, good for her. I mean, this was nominated for Best Art Direction, and we can talk about the cinematography if you really want, or lack thereof.
Wow, you are all in on this, man.
No, it's so... And you know, I'm not putting on a front here and trying to pick up on everything. I was just watching it going, there's nothing to the visuals here. They've put a camera in position and started filming. They've not framed it. It's not... I think they want to go for gothic every so often, but it's really well lit. So it doesn't sort of come across with that kind of creepy... The whole thing with when he's playing the piano after the swamp sequence. And then the curtain comes back and you see him. But it's not hiding anything, because you can see him through it, and it's just revealed halfway through a line. It's not a reveal. It's just... There's all these moments. There's a bit where there's a transition where I think it's the bit with the bodies, and she's given them laudanum. Maybe it's something else, but there's a bit where he walks across the screen, and you know when they wipe the screen, the sort of Star Wars wipe to go from one scene to another. Mm-hmm. They use him walking across the screen to wipe the scene into his face in the shot.
I didn't even notice that.
It's so weird. I had to rewind it a couple of times going, I don't understand what they've done, but they've sort of used him walking across to transition to another shot, which is unusual. And then when you get to Europe, and I think it's a set, but I think it's not a very big set, because the camera goes really shaky at times. And I think sometimes they've got like a gimbal, or they're moving things around them and so on. So someone's holding it. And it really does feel like there's a guy like, gotta hold this camera up, but it's really heavy.
I honestly didn't notice much about the cinematography. So I'm not gonna concede the point, because it wasn't bad enough for me to take notice. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't amazing. This wasn't Lord of the Rings or something like that.
It does feel like a film this high profile, you should talk about like, oh yeah, the really interesting gothic style. Dracula from a couple of years before this had a very certain visual style to it that I think we at least appreciated.
I think this did have a very specific visual style, but it wasn't in the filming so much as it was the sets and the costumes and the way the characters...
Yeah.
They grew their hair out for this.
Did they?
They did.
No.
Yes.
That is definitely not Kirsten Dunst's real hair.
Well, no, probably not. But yeah. Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise grew their hair out for this.
Okay, wow. Okay, well, I was going to do a whole thing on the wigs look really good. Good on them. That's cool. Nice.
I don't know. I think, like, you do make some really good and valid points. But I think at the end of the day, this movie is just so entertaining to me. And it's a genre I enjoy. Like, you know, anybody who knows me knows Buffy the Vampire Slayer is my favorite show of all time.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm not going to go into a movie like this and not like it. Like, that's... If I had gotten the this movie is bad side of the argument, I would have struggled. I'd probably be pulling out some of the... Well, I'd probably be pulling out some of the same arguments you are. But I would have had to look for them. And just watching it, I really enjoyed it. I didn't have a single moment of, this movie's really long, when's it going to be over? Not at all. Like, okay. I was just enjoying the moment as I was experiencing the movie, especially since I hadn't seen it in so long.
I was going to ask, does the time that you first saw it and then revisiting it after it's so long, I mean, does that help? Has that been a...
I don't know. I honestly think that if this had been my first time watching it, I still would have enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it definitely has a very 90s aesthetic. I mean, it's Christian Slater, Brad Pitt, and Tom Cruise. Like, can you get more 90s than that? No, you cannot. But there's just something about it. I'm fascinated with the idea of vampires who choose to go against their nature. Mm-hmm. Which you see more heavily in like Twilight with the Cullens than you do with Angel, because Angel doesn't choose to go against his nature. He's forced to when he gets his soul back, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Spike tries to choose to go against his nature, and that's a whole separate thing. But these are stories that I enjoy being told.
Right.
And this story is like the granddaddy of all of them. And so there was no way I was going to watch this movie and not love it.
Nice.
And then, like, it's just icing on the cake that the performances were so good. Because they were, to the point that, so, one, Anne Rice was really mad that they hired Tom Cruise to do this.
Oh, really?
Like, she did not want Tom Cruise to play Lestat. She wanted Rutger Hauer is who she had in mind initially, but he was too old at this point.
And we've seen him as a vampire, and it definitely doesn't work.
Well, but remember, they started talking about doing a movie in the 70s.
That's fair, actually. Yeah, younger Rutger Hauer would have worked.
Yeah. Yeah. She wanted John Malkovich. She wanted, Jeremy Irons, Peter Sellers. She did not want Tom Cruise. But after she saw the movie, she recanted everything and said he completely and 100% embodied the Lestat that she wrote.
Ah, good.
And to get that kind of praise from the author, I think, is amazing.
I think he is actually very good. And it's almost surprising. If you had told me about the two roles and the two actors, I would have cast them the opposite way around.
That's what she tried to get them to do. Is to switch them. But she ended up saying something like, Tom Cruise did such a wonderful job with it because Interview with a Vampire is Louis' story, and you kind of have to read between the lines to get at who Lestat is. And he did that. Like, he looked at the source material and figured out how to play this Lestat character, even though, like, the words weren't directly there, because it's Louis' story, not Lestat's story. So I think all of the performances Stephen Ray's performance as Santiago aside, because I did not like that one. Like, it didn't make sense to me.
He doesn't get much to do.
He doesn't, but what he does is weird. The whole miming thing, like, mimes are creepy on their own, but when you turn him into a vampiric mime, it like turns into a clownish thing.
Okay.
And it's just weird, and it did not work for me. But everything else, I thought the adaptation was amazing. The performances were great. The locations I enjoyed looking at. The story itself. Like, I am here for Interview with the Vampire. And the ending, can we talk about the ending?
Can I just interrupt you there?
Yes.
And read you something from a review? Which
yes.
I read the review after sitting down to do my thoughts, and I started looking up other things, which was the only thing I missed. And there was something I sort of put into words what I wanted to say, which I don't think I cribbed from earlier. This is the Variety review in 1994.
Okay.
Also coming up short of ideal is Cruise's Lestat. While not as physically imposing as one imagines the character on the printed page, it's easy to get used to his looks. The bigger problem is that Lestat has been stripped of much of his meanness, his sarcastic, bullying manner, and threatening force, which seriously lessens the reasons for Louis' unhappiness and Claudia's revenge. I think that's wrong. I actually think that does come through, and I think he does a very good job of it. He doesn't have to have the physical imposingness.
He's not a physical bully, but he's very much an emotional and psychological bully.
And I think
Tom Cruise embodies that.
I think he does it really well. I think from the very beginning on the plantation, it's good. When Banderas strides upon the stage in the second half, one suddenly witnesses the kind of compelling, charismatic presence a master vampire should have. This type of natural dominance and superiority doesn't come through in Cruise's Lestat. See, that I do agree with. That when he comes on stage, suddenly you do get that sense of, oh, here's someone to take note of. Here's a thing happening. And it really worked for me. And I think that's why I was so looking forward to getting back to that point, because having watched it for the first time a few years ago, I was like, yeah, Antonio Banderas, he's awesome. He's great. He's so good in this.
I would say that Antonio Banderas' Armand is Angelus and Lestat is Spike.
Yes. Yeah.
Very
agreed.
much so. Because Spike, particularly when they were still, before Angel got his soul back, right? When Spike is out there just kind of being, I don't even know how to, he's like a pit bull puppy.
Okay.
Desperate for approval and not caring about the consequences of anything.
Mm.
Right? And Angelus was smart enough to know that there are still rules that you have to follow. Like, you can be as brutal as you want, but there are still certain rules that you follow. And Spike never cared for those. And I get the same feeling from Lestat. Like, he either didn't know or didn't care.
Yeah.
That there were rules for this society. And I kind of got the impression that maybe he didn't know, but he also seemed to kind of be the only vampire in the New World.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a whole different story. I'm interested in more of his backstory, which would, I guess, be the Queen of the Damned.
I don't know. Haven't seen it.
So,
but no, I meant to mention that earlier when talking about all these things, and I forgot to. Thank you very much. You want to talk about the ending?
Perfect ending is perfect.
Which is the other bit of joy. Him in the car with Christian Slater is really good because, I mean, frankly, of all the characters in this, Christian Slater is the character I want to know more of. But also, he's Christian Slater. Like, I adore Christian Slater and will watch him on screen in pretty much anything. So,
right.
You know.
I forgot that's how it ended.
Oh, really?
I had completely forgotten until it happened on the screen. And I was like, oh my gosh. Because I was sitting here thinking, like, as we were getting close to the end, I was like, I don't remember how this ends. Is he going to turn him? But then he asked, and Louis like, you haven't learned anything. And I realized, obviously, he didn't learn anything from this story. He should not want this. That makes perfect sense. He clearly didn't learn anything. And so then he's driving away, and I'm like, huh. And then Lestat shows up out of nowhere, and I was like, that's perfect. That's perfect. Like, ending Louis' story with Lestat killing the interviewer. Loved it.
And yeah, his thing of, I assume I need no introduction. That's good.
That is good.
That's a self-aware character, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I stand by my love for this movie. It's fantastic.
I think my other problem is it's been sort of superseded. There are other better vampire films doing some of this stuff in the years hence.
Sure.
So,
but this was one of the first. And I think that's what makes it so good.
All the vampire films we talked about, this was not one of the first.
That is in my heart.
And I think we should also call out, you know, he appears to be a plantation owner with many slaves, and she talks about how the slaves no longer love him, and they're now afraid of him, and he then goes outside and says, "You're all free," and burns the place down, which we know that's not how it works. And
that's true.
You know.
More than likely, they would all be killed for murdering their master and burning his house down. Yeah. But, you know, Hollywood.
Yeah, it's a bit, ooh.
Yeah.
This is a really bad portrayal that no one thought of, because it appears to be him and the slaves.
Yeah, since his wife and son died. Yeah.
But they all love their master so much, they stay and work for him. Instead of, you know, revolting. And Anyway, let's not read too much into the realism of the thing, except for that. Yes. And I did have to check. This is not the film that changed Thandiwe Newton's name, but it is only a couple of films after.
Okay.
So Thandiwe Newton, the main slave that he talks to in this, her very first film, they misspelled her name as Thandiwe Newton. And she was then, up until this year, maybe last year, that just became her acting name. She just took it on. And
didn't know that wasn't her name.
Well, exactly. In the last year, she has gone, no, I'm going to reclaim my actual name. And you know, it was taken away from me by this director who just put my name down wrong.
Oh, wow.
And that was what she ended up being registered as and so on. And she's now reclaiming it. This wasn't the film. I was really worried when I saw her. I'm like, oh, she's so young. Oh, God, is this... Oh, God.
Yeah.
Don't make it be this film.
Yeah, I didn't recognize... Like, I recognized her, but I couldn't put the name to the face until I saw the credits. And I was like, oh. And then she got to work with Tom Cruise again not long after this in Mission Impossible 2, 3, whichever one it is.
Was it 7 years later, I think, that one?
But yeah.
It is interesting seeing Tom Cruise in a film, because this is pre-Mission Impossible, so this is when he still did films with other major actors. where it wasn't a Tom Cruise film with some other actors in it.
Yeah.
This is still when he got cast with the Paul Newmans and Patrick Swayze of this world, and Dustin Hoffman, of course, from Rain Man. Mm-hmm. But then a couple of years later, he does Mission Impossible, and that's basically, it's Tom Cruise, various other people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is. I do still think it's weird that Tom Cruise did a vampire movie. Like, that still just feels a little weird, but I enjoyed it. So we can still maintain the streak of I have never seen a Tom Cruise movie I didn't like.
Even if the rules of the show dictated that you had to like it.
I'm just sticking to what I said.
Absolutely. Okay. I think we're not going to reveal what we thought.
I'm actually really curious about what you thought. 'Cause I don't know. I don't know.
Is it possible that's why I'm saying we should wait another...
All right.
What for you and me will probably be about 10, 13 weeks before we discuss this and what we actually thought about it.
Oh, wow. It's going to be a little while for sure before we get to it. Yeah. All right.
So we will, as ever, throw up some polls on social media sites so you can come and tell us what you thought about it. Did you agree with one or other of us? Do you have your own thoughts on this? Are there reasons to hate this movie or love this movie that we've not discussed? As ever, make sure you come and tell us. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Eloquent Gushing. On Twitter, you can use the hashtag Movie Fight Club.
I don't think I knew that was a thing.
I've been using it randomly for stuff, so...
Okay, hashtag Movie Fight Club. I personally prefer hashtag Team Mandy, but, you know, that's just me.
Well, that's because, you know, you're more popular than I am. And
oh,
the people
come on,
will vote for
not.
you, so...
I am not.
That's why I'm trying not to use the teams thing.
I mean, everybody kind of universally agreed with you about The Wizard of Oz.
And Fight Club, as it turns out.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, see? People agree with you, not me.
Well, yeah, because I'm not letting it do the teams thing. We need to pick our next film.
Oh, okay.
So, this was a recommendation, so now we need to do a classic. Something that's won Best Picture, won Cannes, won various things, AFI Top 100. We're going to see what it is. Unforgiven.
Ooh, is that Clint Eastwood?
I think it is.
Ooh. I don't think I've seen it. That would have been the kind of movie that I would have been like, my dad likes that movie. I'm not going to watch it.
That's a guy movie for guys who are old.
Yes. Yes. But I did learn in college that I do actually really appreciate Clint Eastwood as an actor.
Okay.
Before he went crazy. So... I'm curious to see it. It's a Western, right?
It is a Western. I think the Western that ended the Western genre, effectively.
Oh, goodness.
for a good time. Not to preempt any conversation on it, but I feel like there was a thing of Westerns was sort of being over as obviously special effects, and Hollywood moved on to action films much more. And this was the grand, you know... We will find out. Okay, right, let's hit the spinner. Spinning. Sound is clearly off. I'm afraid I'm the fanatic. Where else can people find you? Where can people go and listen to you?
You can find me on Twitter at MandiKay, MandiKaye. You can also find me on the Enter the Fold podcast, a Shadow and Bone podcast following the Netflix show. And currently, though when this actually comes out, it's going to be way past that. So just go listen to it anyway, and you'll get to hear me read the books too. It's great. It's fine. Just go listen. Nice.
Well worth listening. You and books is always a good time. So I think that's why we're doing so many books on here.
And where can people find you, Matthew?
You can find me here. You can go and check out our back catalogue on Pop Culture Deprived, or you can listen to Marvelous, our show about the Marvel TV and movie franchises. We are, I think, coming to the end of What If at the moment. So you will be able to go and hear what we think. What if all of the different what ifs?
I can't wait.
Don't forget, if you like what we do, you can even support us in a monetary fashion, to borrow someone else's phrase, that you can support us on Patreon, where you get access to various other recordings that we have done, various other activities over the years, and you get the warm glow in your heart that you are supporting people making content that you absolutely adore. You can find us there, patreon.com/eloquentgushing.
And don't forget, the first rule of Movie Fight Club is to tell all your friends and family about Movie Fight Club.